Okay, so for this video, we're just gonna have some footage playing in the background of High Guard, and I'm just gonna share my thoughts around the game because as of recording of this video, High Guard has officially shut down, given what is like 45 days since the release of the game, and they've already killed it. So I kind of just want to discuss High Guard and maybe talk on the industry as a whole, at least in a larger sense of making live service games and what the goals are for these developers going into that space, especially if it's a crowded space. So without much more rambling, I'm just gonna have gameplay footage of my very, very short time of the game in the background, no face cam or anything like that, and we're just gonna talk about it. So I do want to start off with what my thoughts of High Guard was, and then go into the general discussion of just making the topic overall. And yes, looking back at the footage, I cannot aim for shit. So I think the more I played, the more I started to get a little bit better, but goddamn are some of these earlier clips embarrassing. I will say they are embarrassing to watch. So yeah, I'm gonna try to keep this part of the video very short, but during my very limited time of playing High Guard, which was like, I think my recording says it was up to about an hour and 30 minutes. So use that, take that as you will. I thought the game was overall pretty mediocre, at least for the very little thing that I played. And one of the main things where you're putting out a multiplayer game, live service game is first impressions, because if you lose someone, they're not going to come back. And I know, like I said, someone will say an hour, 30 minutes ain't enough to get a good idea of what the game was. But hey, I just wanted to try it out. You got an hour, 30 minutes out of me. And what I played was not enough to keep my attention. So I went elsewhere. But overall, I thought the game was mediocre. All right. The gunplay was solid enough. I didn't feel like, and that's the best way I can always describe it. I didn't feel like I was fighting the game when I was playing it at most. But at the same time, you had a mixture of multiple ideas, and there really wasn't anything there in the game that said, hey, this is why you would play High Guard. This is the unique pool that we have to get people into the game. For example, the main mode was essentially capture the flag, but instead of bringing it to your base, you brought it to the enemy base, which would trigger the siege mode sequence, and then it would go from capture the flag to essentially search and destroy. For those who are familiar with that in Call of Duty, where now you're tasked with planting bombs in the enemy space, blow up the base, and you win the match. You have elements of Overwatch and other hero shooters with the heroes that they have. I forget what they call the heroes in this one. And then you also have elements of Borderlands, or if you want to say looter shooters or battle royales, in the sense of that you had tier systems for your loot that you would upgrade in the middle of the match. You would mine, which was so weird, but you can mine currency in the game, take it to the merchant, and then use that currency to upgrade your gear, or you can find like loot boxes or boxes across the map to get better gear for the fight. So all in all to say, there just really wasn't anything unique here being offered. And that was where the main failure of the game, I won't say the main failure, but that is definitely one of the key failures of the game, where you release something, the first person shooter, the live service game space is already crowded with so many games. People are already, limited on time, where there's just so many games that they're fighting for your time. You introduce a game that really doesn't have that unique of a draw, and you're hoping to find a huge success, I believe. So I'm getting into the rant, I'm getting ahead of myself, but essentially just to sum it up, I played the game about an hour and a half. I didn't like what I played. It wasn't terrible by any means to like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever, but also was very mediocre. So apparently that was enough for people to not play it, because they shut the game down because they didn't reach the player numbers that they wanted to. So let's talk about overall topic and just the industry as a whole to an extent. Let's start off with, you have the game, you unveil it as the big final reveal. And I say big final reveal because, well, it's the final reveal of the Game Awards. And that is usually a huge thing, because people are like, wow. And in a room of all these awesome announcements, what is the one to close out the show? We get High Guard. When I first saw this game, I was like, oh, okay, let's little trailer action, little, gameplay, hero shooter, capture flag or something, okay. Like that was I was so let down as a final reveal for the Game Awards with this game. So you do that. You didn't release the game a month after the reveal, and I played it. Like I said, hour and a half. Not much uniqueness to it. Hodgepodge of multiple ideas from different games and players. You bleed players. I don't know how many players showed up day one. Maybe someone has Steam charts for it, as people have been referencing a lot for a lot of games lately. But okay, no alpha, no beta. Ship it a month after it was unveiled. You then announced that you're shutting the game down 45 days after the reveal. So, my question is, what was the plan with this game, right? Again, you unveil it at the Game Awards as a big final reveal. You then release it a month later, right? No alpha, no beta again. And then you shut it down, right? Were they expecting Fortnite numbers with this game in terms of revenue, in terms of players? What was the concrete numbers that they were hoping with this game? A game that comes into a space that is already pretty crowded in terms of live service, right? Fortnite, Apex Legends, Battlefield, Call of Duty, a lot of games. Overwatch now, since they had hero shooter elements with Overwatch and Marvel Rivals, it's already a pretty crowded space. So that's one thing. Again, when it comes to the gameplay side of thing, multiple ideas, nothing that really stood out as this is high guard. Like, you have to play high guard because there's this unique thing in high guard, right? And I know technically the siege function was this is high guard, but as I said, at its core, it was just capture the flag, search and destroy. That's it. Like, it wasn't a key defining difference, I would say, that was separated from a lot of other games, right? Like, maybe not every game is going to be a Titanfall, but let's reference Titanfall. Hey, crazy mobility, giant mechs in the battlefield. This is Titanfall. And then I see High Guard. This is High Guard. Capture the flag and search and destroy. That's it, So I am just like really just dumbstruck with this. Like, I genuinely am dumbstruck with this because, for one, marketing the game at the Game Awards could not have been cheap. Okay, I think a while back someone had unveiled like the numbers, the cost when it comes to unveiling a game or running a trailer at the Game Awards. It is not a cheap thing. So if you're going to be dropping that type of money as a big reveal, I don't know if he has like a 10x price on it because this is the closer of the night, but you're dropping a lot of money on that. I will hope you have faith in the product that you're creating. But another thing that I want to talk about or reference to is that how many games before this release have been unveiled and either died in development or just died and just failed as being a live service game, right? The biggest thing that people reference to, because it happened, I think it was last year, give or take, maybe 2 years ago. I forget about time and everything like that, being an adult and losing track of time. But Concord, the main game that people keep referencing when it comes to, oh my God, look at what happened here. You had Concord of all things to look at and say, let's not be those guys on what not to do. Now, granted, with Concord, I believe they had like I think they kind of did the same thing where, yeah, they unveiled the game. It was kind of like a teaser, but they had such a short window between player feedback with their beta to the release, I believe. I have to look into that timeline again when it came to Concord, but very little time to get player feedback on the game to see what did and didn't work. And the important thing here is that when you are creating a live service game, as I mentioned, that space is filled with other live service games: Fortnite, Battlefield, Call of Duty, Overwatch, Apex Legends, you name it. You have to make a good impression when you release this game. Otherwise, people are not going to stay or not going to stick around and hope that it gets better. You're going to play it? A lot of different ideas here. We got some Overwatch. We got some Call of Duty Search and Destroy, some first-person shooter action, some Battlefield destruction environments and stuff like that. It's okay. I'm going to go back and play Fortnite, Battlefield, Call of Duty. There's nothing really here that draws me in. There's not see the potential here. I'll be back later. Like this little part of it. Maybe they improve this. I'll be back. No, you didn't have that. Right. So I don't know, man. Like, I am just again so confused on what they were hoping to achieve with this game. And what surprises me, or let me put it this way, when it comes to live service games, it's just when you're making a live service game, please have like a realistic roadmap and expectations, rather, I should say. Like, don't expect to be, again, we don't have specific numbers in terms of what they were hoping for, but don't expect Fortnite numbers day one. And with all the examples of games that, hey, we released a live service game and our player number tanked, and we were here for 6 months, 12 months in terms of taking player feedback, improving on what the game offered. Maybe after 6 months, whatever it is, we do a new marketing push, a soft reboot, if you will, of the game, and hopefully bring new players in because, hey, yeah, we unveiled the game in January or in December, came out January. It didn't hit the way we wanted to. We're back in July. We're back in August. Look at this new stuff in High Guard. This is why you should check out, like, give it a second run, if you will, essentially, to try to get people's interest again. Now, again, huge fumble because you got the reveal at the Game Awards, man. That's a huge marketing push right there. You got the big reveal at the Game Awards and you dropped the ball, right? So I don't know. I'm all over the place with this one. It's just a giant question mark. Like, maybe if I make the thumbnail, maybe I should just put a giant question mark with the High Guard background or key art and just like, what was the plan here? Because again, you announced the game, released the game, and then shut the game down. Like, you didn't do a public alpha, didn't do a public beta to see what was working and what was not working, right? You had so many other games to show you what to do and what not to do when it comes to live service games. And you still fumbled it. So it is a huge question mark as to what was the plan with this game. I am just talking in circles because I don't know what better things to say. I didn't have high hopes for the game to begin with off the first reveal. But even then, I'm still just surprised, like, damn, what was the point in ship? Like, oh my gosh. And one of the funny things with this is people are saying this is Jeff Keighley's fault or that he deserves some blame for the game's failure, right? Because he took their money and did his job. Okay, that's one of the things I want to emphasize here. He did his job. His job is to market the game, essentially, right? He gave you a massive stage to put your product out, to unveil your product, right? Boom. Huge. I don't know what the numbers were with the Video Game Awards, but usually good, a huge turnout of people watching the Video Game Awards. You the big final reveal of the show. And as people know, one of the challenging things with the games is marketing, getting eyes on a product. Because if people don't know you exist, you're not going to get players. He helped with that, right? He also put tweets out post the reveal of the game saying, hey guys, don't forget, High Guard's coming out. Because even I forgot. Like I said, their unveiling was so disappointing. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. Not really. All right. And I forgot about it. But now I'm on Twitter. Jeff was like, hey, yeah, High Guard's coming out. Don't forget about High Guards. And I know people were referenced, like, I think he made a tweet like saying, oh, you all gonna owe me an apology associated. So maybe he did hype it up a little bit. Maybe, sort of, in that regard. So if you wanted to say from that perspective, he might have set the game up for failure to a very little extent, because he might have said, oh yeah, guys, you're going to regret making fun of me. Watch this. And setting expectations, sure. To that small degree, I can see. Very tiny small degree, because maybe he oversold it. But, a huge but here. As the developer, as the creator of the game, your job here is to create a product that people want to play, okay? The bulk of the blame here goes towards the developer. And as I just acknowledged here, if you want to say he overhyped it, but ultimately, I'm gonna sit on the square like this. Jeff deserves zero blame for this, okay? Zero. His job was to tell you about the game. His job was to put the game in front of you, and that was it. The developers were tasked with creating a product people want to play, and they failed at that one. That's it. No need to do mental gymnastics, jumping through hoops to try to say this is Jeff's fault. He deserves some blame for this. He took their money and the game flopped. I'm like, he's not the developer. He didn't create the game. He told me about it. This is like me saying, hey, Jeff, I need you to tell 100 people that I'm going to be hosting a party soon. Okay, Jeff tells 100 people. 100 people show up. What's this party? and it's the shittiest party you've ever been to. And they said, bro, I ain't standing around. So the moment they showed up, they leave. I can't go to Jeff and be like, sir, what the fuck? What you do? They're gone. I brought them here. You're a bad host. So they left. He brought people to the game. The game was not good. So they left. So I'm spending a little too much time on the Jeff part because it really was surprising that people genuinely believe this and think that he deserves fault for the game's failure. So just to bring everything back into full circle, I don't know what they were hoping for this game. If they're going to shut it down 45 days afterwards, we had Concord. There's plenty of other live service games out there that show you that you need to be here for the long haul, relatively speaking, I suppose. So yeah, to bring things into full circle, you had a big spot at the Game Awards being the final closer of the event. And as I said for myself, I found the game to be very mediocre and just a hodgepodge of different ideas. And maybe I found it mediocre because playing back this footage, my aim was garbage as hell in some of the sections of this of the clip here. So maybe that's why I was just like, this isn't for me because I'm missing like crazy. If I was really good, maybe I had those high moments like, oh yeah, I wiped out a whole team in Siege by myself. But no, in all honesty, it's just again, it was a mixture of a lot of ideas, but that's the problem is it was just a lot of ideas and nothing that really like anything that concrete stood out. I know again, siege mode was her big thing, but again, it was basically like the siege part really wasn't. You could have expanded on the siege part and really tried to grow more because it's such a brief thing where the barricade comes in, knocks down their barrier, and then it just goes straight into, like I said, search and destroy. Like the siege element was such a it was just a transition than anything instead of like an actual part of the experience, I would say. That's the best way I would say it. But again, what they should have done was definitely unveil it, do an alpha, do a beta, try to do a marketing push to get people interested in the game. Just because it's a hero shooter as well. So one of the things to get people interested, I want to know more about these heroes. I want to know more about this lore, this world that I'm being introduced to, and not just the PvP side of things. But no, here's the trailer. Check us out in January. Take some feedback on players between January and March after they had updates along the way in February, and then announce that you're shutting it down, right? And as I said before, you're coming into a crowded market with a live service, first-person shooter, competitive shooter space, and you have to give a good impression early on and not ship it and hope people will come back later when you have introduced new fixes and new updates and stuff like that, because you've already lost their attention. And unless it's like groundbreaking stuff, they're probably not going to come back, you know? So again, I'm just dumbfounded. I can't find the right words for this in terms of what they were hoping for, but I'm gonna go ahead and stop the ramble here. And I do want to say also, like, I wasn't hoping for the game to fail. I know that's kind of a thing in the industry that I'm starting to notice lately with some games is it feels like people are hoping for the game to fail. Look at what's happening with Marathon. I'm not gonna turn this into a Marathon video where it feels like some people are actively hoping for the game to have its downfall. But really it's just like, I don't want you to fail because I know how much effort and time goes to creating a product. For me, I'm just speaking from the perspective like, why put out a product the way that you do that leads to its own failure? Because it's just wasted time, resources, and so much more. Where it's just like, if you're gonna go this route, like, do something unique that'll bring people in, or be realistic in terms of what your goals are, and go from there. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and close things out here. If you played it, comment below what your thoughts were before it shut down, and if you saw any potential, or do you think like, hey, same thing? I don't. It was a lot of ideas, but ultimately it was just a meh solid performance. Like, it wasn't bad, it wasn't amazing. It was just like, yeah, it's a competent shooter, but I don't see why I would bounce off of or come off of Fortnite, Apex, Call of Duty, Overwatch, insert other popular live service game to come and play High Guard. So I'm gonna end it here.